Hello and welcome to CultureCast. I'm Claire.
I'm Ray.
I'm Iram.
I'm Cindy.
And I'm El Hussein.
And today we're going to be discussing the film Blue is the Warmest Color, which covers the topics of sexuality, identity searching, and relationship dynamics, both platonic and intimate. So let's talk about the director first. Actually, let's do a brief overview of the film, I think. It's about a young girl, Adele, who's a high school student living in France. And she has a group of friends who are urging her to pursue this young boy, Thomas. And so they eventually become intimate, they have sex for the first time, and then she realizes that he's not really the guy for him, and they break up. Mm-hmm. And then one day when she's walking down the street, she sees a blue-haired girl named Emma, and she really catches her eye. There's something about her, she's very mysterious, and she begins to fantasize about her. And then eventually, later on in the film, the two meet formally at a lesbian bar, and they quickly fall for each other. They both begin to date, and they introduce each other to families. Adele's family is more conservative, I would say, and she has not come out to them yet. And I don't think she really wants the label of being lesbian. She doesn't want that label for herself. That's kind of a self-denial moment for her, but she also doesn't want her peers to make fun of her. So that's another reason she hasn't come out. However, Emma's family is a lot more welcoming, and they're aware that Emma and Adele are dating. Emma is more of a free spirit. She is a painter, while Adele is living a more structured life, and she's pursuing a teaching degree in France. And this kind of dissonance between their lifestyles eventually leads to the fizzling out of their love and passion for each other because their lifestyles are so different. Mm-hmm. And they eventually both cheat on each other. And even though Emma and Adele go their separate ways and they end on somewhat good terms, Adele ends up alone in the end, but she realizes that that's okay. It's okay to be alone. Now I'm going to talk about the director. I'm going to butcher his name. His name is Abdelatif Kechiche. I completely butchered that. He is from France. More realistical shots, so he does that through he very close-up cut shots. And also he loved to bring up somewhat controversial topics in France, such as African immigration and homosexuality, which was seen in Blue is the Warmest Color. Hussein, do you want to do that?
Yes, so pretty much going off of what Claire said, the story is told through this young woman, her name is Adele, that she is struggling pretty much with self-identification. She does not know what to identify herself with, whether she was straight or a lesbian. So at first, like Claire said as well, that her peers pressured her to go out with this guy Thomas, and they do get intimate, they do have sex for the very first time, and she feels that it's not natural, it's not right for her, this is not what she wants. So she goes and she tells her friend about it, and she advises her to go to this lesbian bar, where she does end up meeting Emma, who plays a major role in the whole story. And like also going off what Claire said, you can observe Adele's family being very conservative when both Emma and Adele go to dinner at Adele's family. And just because Adele does not want to come out or is afraid to come out, she introduces Emma as a friend. Not only that, but she also introduces Emma as a friend who happens to have a boyfriend, which we learned is not true. They were dating at that time. And also, like, that struggle that Adele faces throughout the whole movie, you can see this happening throughout time. The movie goes with Adele through stages. You can see it happening in high school at first, when she struggles to find herself and her identity, and then you can see it over time as high school's over and she's practicing what she in her life, and she's doing her job, and she still does not feel the satisfaction of not knowing exactly what she wants. Like Claire said, with the whole relationship with Emma, they both cheated on each other the one time, and somehow they do end up on good terms. But throughout the movie, that you feel that Adele is feeling more the need to have this relationship with Emma. She's feeling that Emma is playing a more of an important part in her life. She's giving her that reassurance that this relationship it's something normal. It's something okay to have, even if it's not. Even if it's not with a guy, as it was seen as the culture in France was at the time, that the normal relationship is between a woman and a man. Adele needed Emma in her life for that reassurance that it's okay to have a relationship between a woman and another woman.
Yeah, I think that's really important because she uses Emma almost as a crutch to find her identity throughout the film.
Yeah, and now I will continue with the lighting, editing styles, or like camera angles. When we first look at the lighting, the beginning of the film, we mainly see cool and blue tones, but I realized that it starts with blue tones, but then when Adele sees Emma for the first time, everything becomes warm, and they're outside, there's sun, and I realized that there are mainly like warm colors when Adele is kind of happy or like she's with Emma. So Emma is more like a light into Adele's life. Yeah. And then as I saw that there the light is mainly coming from back of the characters in most of the scene, and I read that Kashish like used this, and we see that in the kissing scenes and in a lot of scenes basically, that when they're kissing or when they're together with Emma, there is light coming from the back and there are sun rays hitting on the camera. Also, I realized that when she breaks up with Thomas, there is also the sun coming through the tree and hitting on Adele. Maybe it's like showing Emma is there for you next, like after Thomas. I don't know.
Or like that part of her is like leaving almost into heaven. Like that part is leaving her body.
And when we look at the camera and angles, there's always like a continuous and close-up shots of Adele. Camera captures every single detail, like her gestures, her eyes, her tears, everything. And I think this is how the director chose to show tell the story to the audience. And I think the other reason for close-up shots is to put the audience's attention on the actors and not other things on the background, mainly the emotions of the actors and like the main characters. And also the background is always blurred, and even in like crowded places.
I think that's like a stylistic thing too, because like Kashish, like I said before, he really likes to focus in on the raw emotions of the characters, so I think that's kind of like his style of capturing all of their emotions.
And I also like to think the length of the movie focuses on the emotions as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And when there are a scene change, like setting change, we always see like a far and long shots of other people other than the characters. For example, in the like the date they go on with Thomas, we see other people first. And in the bar, we always see the details of like people kissing, gay people kissing, and like other things. When we look at the sound and background music, there is no music at all in most of the scenes. So as Claire mentioned, it's really raw, and like I think it's because of like to show emotions. The sounds are really diegetic. There's TV sounds, fork and knife sounds while they're eating. Even the sound Adele makes with her mouth when she's eating, she is really
Very
messy. Yeah. And there is music. They make it look like a music in the scene. For example, the day she meets with Emma, we hear that instrumental soft music coming, but they make it look like it's coming from a street player. So they make it still so real and raw, I guess. Also, the other thing I realized is the music that plays when Adele and Emma first see each other is the same music as the last scene when Adele is walking alone away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never realized that. That's
I realized that, yeah. And when we look at the editing techniques, as I said, it's really raw. It's like a direct cut to the next scene. There is no special effects. It's really plain. And sometimes it's even confusing and hard to realize there's a whole new setting because it's just like cuts to the other scene. And during the same scene, the transitions are really smooth. There are also some bridges between the scenes. There is usually music comes before the scene, or conversation continues through the beginning of another scene. And finally, when we look at the costumes, there's no makeup on main characters and little makeup on Adele at the through the end of the movie to make her look a little older, I guess.
Yeah.
I also read somewhere that Keshish didn't want any stylist or makeup artist to make it more real and raw.
Yeah.
Her friends have pretty intense makeups, I
Yeah.
guess. They have eyeliners and all, nail polishes and all of that. Maybe there are representing more girly parts, and Adele is always wearing pants and baggy clothes.
Yeah.
Also Emma, she has a really masculine style. Maybe that's the representation of girl and boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to break that, even though it's reinforcing it, because her friends are still dressing more in, I guess, a feminine way, but I guess it's breaking it because they put Emma and Adele in more masculine roles, I guess you could say.
And when we look at the hair, Adele's messy bun is the thing we see in the movie all the time.
Yeah.
The hair is messy and effortless. There is no hairstylist, as I mentioned. And the last thing is there is always blue items on Adele, even though it's like a scarf, it's an accessory. There is always a blue. In conclusion, I want to say Keshish represent the story with simple and pure techniques, and I guess this is what makes the story so special.
Yeah.
We can see many metaphors in the film. For example, Adele was born from a normal family. She always in a messy bun, and she begins to let it down when Emma came into her life, which signifies Adele meets her love and starts to change herself. She wants to look pretty and seductive to get Emma's attention. A few years later, Emma became a well-known painter, and Adele became a kindergarten teacher. Adele took care of everything and became a hostess, and she arranged everything for Emma's party alone. Although she tries to do her best to help Emma's guests, and she is still unable to join them because the guests are all artists and painters. Adele can only prepare foods and drink for everyone and watch Emma chat with guests. Emma was deep in conversations with her lone friend Liz, who is also a painter, which made Adele feel quite uncomfortable because they used to be lovers as well. Even so, Adele didn't say anything because she didn't want to upset Emma or come off as insecure, and also partly blinded her love for Emma.
And I think that was an important point in the film because it was kind of the beginning of the end for them. When she saw Emma with Lise, she kind of suspected that there was cheating. So I think that was an important moment for Adele to realize, and that was kind of the beginning of where she started questioning her sexuality again. And that was right before she went and hung out with her work colleague who was a male.
Yeah, and I just felt they kind of, I don't know, their relationship became worse when Emma dyed her hair, I think,
Yeah, when it went back to blonde.
Yeah,
So
it was
I guess it's
complete change
Right.
in their relationships.
Yes. So Adele tried to get confidence from Emma. However, Emma told Adele that she should pursue her self-dreams, and she went with painting. Another sign of tension was Emma refusing to have sex with Adele, supposedly because her period was coming, but the truth wasn't. And Emma was avoiding Adele. At this point, we can see their passion has faded, and their different jobs and lifestyle in general create a gap between them. The next night, Emma left a message telling Adele that she would go home because she was have a discussion with Liz, which is talking about the painting. And Adele heard this news. She could not tell whether she's jealous or lonely, so she agreed to go out with her male colleague, which let them have sex. Once Emma discovered that Adele was cheating on her, she kicked Adele out of the house and broke up with her without hesitation, which is unfair since Emma was the one pushed Adele away, and when they met again, Emma was already back together with Liz. And it was revealed that Emma and Liz may have been seeing each other before she and Adele was broke up. And it was probably for the best that Adele and Emma didn't end up together. Emma's blue hair and her love with Adele both have limits. Emma's blue hair faded back to the blonde, and the passion she and Adele once shared has fizzled out that after getting too comfortable with each other.
Yeah, I think this, all of what Cindy was saying basically points to the fact that Emma was more of like a stepping stone for Adele, kind of like an in-between transition phase for her, kind of transitioning away from being a straight woman and into a lesbian woman.
Yeah, and then we've been focusing on the Emma's role and like Adele's role, but it's obvious like males also plays a really important role in the movie, and then so let's move on to the role of main characters. And at first, like Adele's best friend was the male character called Valentin, and then like he was their first one, like Adele told her secret to him.
Yeah,
like,
and he was gay, you later find
yeah,
out. Yeah,
right. So that's why he's really important. And like on the contrary, like female friends are kind of bring in front of like everyone, like public occasions. So I thought like the Valentin plays a really important role as well. And then like also like every time she gets close to somebody, like especially males are coming to Adele to ask her out, right? So Adele was like, and then like but like that when Adele like after Adele saw Emma on the street, she was so obsessed and like she tried to seek her and she's looking for her. So I thought like that was the first time for her, like to try to
Pursue
somebody.
pursue somebody. So I thought like she became more aggressive, still not passive anymore. And then also I will focus on some sexual scenes because in the film we see some sex scenes, and then in all these scenes, as Cindy said, Adele unties her hair and like try to show herself like more mature and like as an adult. So the sexual scene with Emma lasts more than 10 minutes in total in the movie. And then they do not have lines during this scene, but they tell everything with their body and like the breath. So that's why like there is no music, but it doesn't matter. And like it is the no music, because there is no music. They can, we can listen to the like their breath and like body's movement. Or
adds on to the like how the director Abdul Latif, like he focuses more on the emotions and he focuses more like on how to get the message across, how it is, not to like add any cinematic effects to it, pretty much.
Yeah, so I think adding music to the background would make it more processed, whereas he, like we've been saying, he prefers more like raw. And I think it was also interesting how, Ray, you said it was the sex scene with Emma was 10 minutes, but with Thomas it was what, like
1 minute?
Yeah, like 1
minute
minute.
or something.
So it was just not even comparable to Emma's.
Yeah, right. So but interesting is like that Adele had sex with both Emma and Thomas. So when we compare, as you said, like when we compare, it's like obvious there is a big difference, like as well as the time stuff, but also like when she was having the sex with Thomas, her eyes are not looking at him, but she was like kind of distracted.
Yeah.
And like she's looking around and like she's not focusing on
Her mind was away.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
And then that is because like she's obsessed with the car that she saw on the street. So she's like trying to figure out like is this the one I really want it or
Yeah.
something. So
Mm-hmm.
that is also another big difference. And she tried to love him, but she could not finally. And then the whole time she's having sex with, she's distracted and not really living in a vulnerable moment with him. But instead, as she said to her best friend, Valentin, she just fakes it everything.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
just pretend to be pressured by Thomas, and yeah. But like finally, when she met Emma, and she gets to know what love is, and then Adele and Emma find love within each other, and like their scene lasts more than 10 minutes. Yeah, but the thing is like at the second half of the movie, like since Adele has an affair with another man, Emma decided to break up with Adele. Also, like I realized like the breaking up scene is like totally different from the scene with Emma and the scene with Thomas.
Yeah.
Like when she breaks up with Thomas, that was like on the bench. And
it was very casual,
Yeah.
and they didn't really show much emotion. But when it's with Emma and Adele, they're crying.
Yes.
Like Emma hits Adele at once.
Mhm.
There's just so much more emotion showed in that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's obvious like Adele did not cry when she breaks up with Thomas.
Yeah.
And
Because she
but
didn't actually love him.
yeah,
Yeah.
but she was like kind of crazy when she breaks up with Emma. So yeah, that's the other stuff I realized. And then as the story proceeds, like Emma gradually becomes busy and left, and so the Adele felt kind of alone because, and also like the Emma's new worker like Liz
Lace, yeah.
Lace
Yeah.
is because she is like the ex-girlfriend of Emma,
Yeah.
so like Adele feels kind of jealous
Yeah.
because they're both working together. So, and Adele tried to love her coworker again. Like he's a man, and his name is Antoine. And then-
Antoine, yeah.
Antoine.
Oh,
Yeah.
darn.
Yeah, and then like they dance together, and finally they, they have close relationship, and like it's an affair. So, so consequently, like males work as haven for her, like the place where she feels kind of relief. I mean, like she tries to get away with the relationship with Emma because she feels lonely and like she feels kind of jealous, and then she tries to love another man, but she couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can say like she met many men in the film, but but still Emma is the only one she genuinely loved. So that's my conclusion.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about the film as a feminist work because there's a lot to pull from there. I think the director, because she does a lot throughout the film to ensure that the main focus is women empowerment, and I think he really tries to take the crutch of patriarchy away from women and kind of let them walk on their own and show their own strengths. And some of the ways he does that is he has really strong female roles like Emma and Adele, and he highlights their sexual experiences as they are women rather than men, which I think is really great, and it speaks to the feminist component. And he also allows women to pursue whichever careers that they find intrinsically motivating. So for Emma, that was painting, and for Adele, that was teaching. And I think that's interesting because they're kind of going against what society may deem suitable for like women like them. Also, during the sex scene with Thomas, instead of the camera angle being focused on Thomas and like his pleasure throughout the sexual experience, it's actually focused on Adele's, and even though she's not really interested in it, it's still showing her emotions of the scene and the experience. But when it's the sex scene with Emma and Adele, the camera catches both of their faces, and it's almost like a euphoric expression on their faces. And I think that like sheds a light on the female orgasm rather than the male orgasm, which is often the one that's depicted in films a lot. And I think that Kashish here eliminates the male gaze that we talked about in class, and it puts men in the female's shoes instead of the reverse, where women are kind of forced to see these sex scenes from a male's perspective. And I think another instance worth noting of the role reversal is a scene at the lesbian bar where Emma and Adele first meet. Emma is the one who kind of rescues Adele from being talked to by this other random stranger. And Emma is the one that's approaching her, and that kind of gives her the power, because usually in bars, like, the men are the ones coming up to the women and it gives them the power. But instead here, Emma is the one with the power because she's the one approaching Adele. Also, the LGBT Pride parade was a really important scene because it was right after Emma and Adele first have sex. So I kind of saw that as her like baptism into the new LGBT world that she had just entered. And even though she kind of only came out to Emma, it was she was still kind of coming out, even though it wasn't to her friends or her family. And she kind of starts to live more authentically then. Also, the Pride Parade's a really good example of radical feminism, I think, because they believe that you should free both men and women, not just women. And in the parade, you can see there's close-ups of gay men, trans men, and just like men in general who are not living the typical like heterosexual life. And it's important that they do close-ups on them because it shows not only the lesbian part of LGBT, but also the gay, the trans, and other parts. So I think it's freeing for both men and women. I also wanted to talk about Adele's occupation. So we know that she was pursuing a teaching degree, and I'm an education major. I know that's a very women-dominated field, but I think the significance lies more within what Adele received from the occupation itself rather than choosing teaching in the first place. Because while she's finding the pedagogy of her classroom, like how it all works and how her students are working, she's also finding the pedagogy of her sexuality and kind of experimenting with that.
Right.
So like she's experimenting sexually and socially with Emma and her friends, she's also experimenting learning to discipline her students and disciplining them while also maintaining a nurturing tone. So she's kind of trying to find the balance in her personal life, but also her life as a teacher. So I think it's kind of ironic and paradoxical because even though she pursued a teaching career, she also became a learner herself through having a relationship with Emma, because Emma was the one teaching her about her own sexuality.
Yeah, definitely.
Great, that concludes today's CultureCast video.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.